I am the cat of Bai Ningbing. After being tortured to death by bad people, Bai Ningbing cried herself to sleep every night. She sobbed and said, "I will never raise another cat again," so I used all my dried fish. To make a deal with an angel, I needed to transform into 3 different cats, each of whom must be adopted by Bai Ningbing. If I succeeded, I could return to her, in my original body, to stay by her side forever. If I failed, I would remain on the cat star, chasing mice for eternity. The first cat I became was an abandoned Scottish fold. Bai Ningbing's first cat was me, a tabby kitten. She was a girl suffering from depression, and her doctor suggested she adopt a kitten or a puppy. That's when she found me. At the time, I was less than 2 months old. When my mother went hunting, I sneaked out to play. But when I returned home, my mother had already left with my siblings. She had abandoned me. I searched for a long time, called out desperately, but my mother never returned. Slowly, I realized my mother didn't accidentally leave me behind. She didn't want me anymore. I curled up on the side of the bustling street, starving and barely alive. Just when I thought my short cat life was coming to an end, 2 warm fingers suddenly lifted me by the scruff of my neck. The girl looked at me with a pained expression. "Meow meow, are you unwanted too?" Having never been in contact with humans before, I thought Bai Ningbing was one of the bad ones. Instinctively, I extended my claws toward her and hissed. Her grip was too strong, and I couldn't break free. In the end, I could only resign myself and close my eyes. But in the next moment, I fell into a warm embrace. Bai Ningbing wrapped me in her jacket and said, "Then come home with me." From that moment, I became her cat. Clearly, Bai Ningbing had never cared for a cat before. She pulled out a fish larger than me from a cold, frosty cabinet and said, "Meow meow, you must be starving. Eat quickly." I gnawed on the fish for a long time, managing only to chew off a bit of its skin. Realizing something, she slapped her thigh with sudden awareness. "You're just a kitten. You need milk." She fiddled with a noisy little box, ordering goat milk powder for me. Clumsily, she held a syringe to feed me milk. At first, she accidentally squirted it into my nose, but over time, she became more skilled. Within a week, while holding that noisy little box, she bought me snacks, toys I'd only seen behind glass windows, various canned meats, and an endless supply of dried fish. She raised me from a tiny kitten into a plump cat. Bai Ningbing was a peculiar girl. One moment, she would smile and sniff my chest enthusiastically. The next moment, after speaking into her little box, she would break down crying. At that time, I didn't understand why she cried. I guessed she was either hungry or wanted me to play with her. So I carried cat food and my favorite fish toy to her bedside. Gently, I tapped her with my paw. "Eat," I said in my own way. "Once you're full, the cat will play with you." Sure enough, I guessed right. Seeing the cat food and toy, she stopped crying. She hugged me tightly and happily nuzzled me with her face. Duodwo, in your next life, will you still be mommy's cat? Duodwo was the name she gave me. She said, "Since I'm Ningbing, you'll be Duodwo." She even asked me to call her mommy. I didn't agree. I knew she didn't give birth to me, but I could promise her that I'd be her cat in my next life. I just didn't expect that day to come so soon. The first cat I became was a Scottish fold. My original owner disliked how often I got sick. Every trip to the vet cost a lot of money, so they abandoned me next to a garbage bin. Bai Ningbing once told me, "Money is hard to earn for humans. You have to work tirelessly, like an ox or a horse, just to make a little." So I didn't blame my owner. Even if I hadn't been abandoned, I would have left on my own. Because I needed to find Bai Ningbing, I followed her scent, walking a long distance, When I got hungry, I dug through garbage bins. When I got thirsty, I drank from dirty roadside water. As the scent grew stronger, I found I couldn't walk anymore. I collapsed in the grass nearby Ningbing's company. I was sick again. Every step I took felt like my bones were splitting apart. Back on Catstar, I had seen a Scottish fold before. It told me it wasn't actually a normal cat. Its folded ears were caused by a genetic mutation, one that affected the development of cartilage throughout its body. Whenever it got sick, it was in such pain it couldn't speak or even walk. Yet humans, thinking its demeanor was gentle, deliberately bred more Scottish folds. It said, if given a choice, it would rather not have been born. At the time, I thought it was lying. Every cat was born with its own unique talents. Speed. If you couldn't walk, then you weren't truly a cat. But when I actually became a Scottish fold, I realized it hadn't lied. With my paw pads rubbed raw, I forced myself to stand again and again, pushing through the pain, only to collapse in unbearable agony every time. I never thought that on my first attempt, I would already be facing failure. I was so close, just a little more, and I could see Bai Ningbing again. Meow! It was Bai Ningbing's voice. I forced my eyes open just a sliver. It was really her. In the short year we'd been apart, she had become gaunt and much thinner. She carefully placed her hand on my belly. Still alive. Meow meow. I'll take you to the hospital. You have to hold on. Bai Ningbing was still as kind as ever. Before, she often hid from me to feed the stray cats in the neighborhood. She lied, saying she was just passing by, but I didn't believe her. Every time, her clothes carried the scent of the same cat. How could it be that every time she passed by, she coincidentally met the same cat? One time, I got really mad at her once. Before leaving for work, she forgot to put out cat food for me. I went hungry all day at home, and she unbelievably was out secretly meeting other cats. Not just one cat, but several. I curled up in my bed, ignoring her. Bai Ningbing seemed to sense my anger. While filling my bowl with food, she laughed and said, "Do Wadwo, listen to me. They're just my outside companions. You're my legitimate firstborn cat." I refused to listen to her excuses. "Do Wadwo, I'll open to cans of food for you. Forgive mommy, okay?" I stared at the delicious canned meat, swallowing hard. A good cat doesn't refuse a feast. And there's no reason to hold a grudge against food. Fine, I thought. I'll forgive you this time. Watching me devour the food, she gently stroked my head. "Eat slower. When it's gone, we'll buy more. Do Wadwo, how about I find you a companion? It's called Xiaoyuan, and it's very obedient. I'm sure you'll become good friends." I paused mid-bite. She usually only gave me one can of food, but today she opened to an unprecedented move. It was exactly as I suspected. Humans are cunning creatures. Meow! Hold on, we'll be at the hospital soon. Bai Ningbing's voice brought me back to reality. She had somehow found a cardboard box, gently picked me up, and placed me inside. Looking at the person I had longed for day and night, I cried out in excitement. "Bai Ningbing! It's me, Du Odwo. Your cat is back." But the sound that came out was just a faint whimper. Bai Ningbing thought she had hurt me, so her movements became even gentler. "Meow! Does it hurt a lot?" "No, it doesn't," I thought. Seeing Bai Ningbing makes me so happy. Without delay, Bai Ningbing rushed me to the pet hospital. The vet examined me thoroughly, his face clouded with concern as he told her it contracted feline distemper while wandering, and its intestines are filled with stones. The fact that it survived this long is a miracle, and it's a Scottish fold. Even if we treat it, it will still have recurring health issues. Nobody would want to adopt it. This young male vet, I recognized him. At first, I didn't like him much, because he was the one who neutered me. In my previous life, Bai Ningbing would bring me here at the drop of a hat. Truthfully, I wasn't even sick most of the time. I was just too full to move. But she always made a fuss over it. Eventually, after so many visits, I found myself reluctantly liking the neuter culprit. Somehow, he grew on me. Bai Ningbing, her eyes rimmed red, looked at me deeply for a long moment. Then she said to the vet, "Treat it. Dr. He, I'll take care of it." Yes, I did it. Success. Angel, see? I knew Bai Ningbing didn't mean it when she said she'd never have another cat. She's too kind-hearted to watch a little cat suffer. Dr. He hesitated for a moment. "Miss Bai, are you sure about this? The cost is significant. And, if I remember correctly, your previous cat passed away not long ago." Perhaps Bai Ningbing paused, as if choosing her words carefully. "Since I've come across it, there's no reason to ignore it. It's a life after all." After saying this, Bai Ningbing turned and walked toward the hospital entrance. I knew she was going to ask her mother for money again. Half of her salary was controlled by her mother. Bai Ningbing had an older brother, but their mother only asked her for money. The last time, when Bai Ningbing asked her mother for money because of me, she was harshly scolded over the phone. "It's just a cat. If it dies, so be it. Spending money on its treatment. Are you out of your mind? What can a cat possibly give you? We raised you all these years, and now you're saying a cat is better than your parents? Ungrateful child. If you have so much money, send more of it back home." That day, Bai Ningbing held my lifeless body and cried for so long. Her eyes became swollen. She bought a lot of my favorite dried fish and canned food, and buried me in the earth. As she buried me, she cried, "Duodwo, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. I'm useless, aren't I? If I can't even take care of a cat, then I shouldn't have one. Duodwo, in your next life, find a better owner. Don't come back to me." My soul floated in the air, spinning in desperation. I wanted so badly to tell her it wasn't Bai Ningbing's fault. It was the cat's fault. The cat was just too mischievous. Fortunately, Bai Ningbing had given me plenty of dried fish and canned food. I was able to use them to make a deal with the angel again. I still wanted to be Bai Ningbing's cat. I wanted to stay with her forever. Bai Ningbing stood at the hospital door, taking a deep breath, pulling a small box out of her pocket. Just as she was about to call her mother, Doctor, he stopped her. "The little cat, it has already woken up. Go and take a look at it," he urged. Tears immediately welled up in Bai Ningbing's eyes. She looked at my lifeless body, murmuring to herself, "It held on for so long. Why couldn't it just hold on a little longer?" Doctor, he tried to comfort her. "Perhaps it's better this way. A full-deared cat spends its entire life suffering from pain. Maybe going to the cat planet sooner is kinder." Strangely enough, right before it passed, its eyes were fixed in your direction. "Do you think it might be ... Could it be Duo?" Before, I dreamed about it. It was right after I passed away. Bai Ningbing spent her days staring at my photos, crying her heart out. I didn't like seeing her cry. Bai Ningbing was such a beautiful girl. I loved seeing her smile. On the cat planet, there's a rule. Catch 1,000 mice, and you're allowed to appear in your owner's dream once. As a tabby cat, catching mice was never a challenge for me. In just half a year, I caught enough to make it to 1,000. That's how I entered her dream. I told her not to be sad. I promised I would be her cat again. I asked her to wait for me. Thinking back to this, Bai Ningbing cried even harder. "I'm sorry, Duo. I didn't recognize you. I'm so sorry." "It's okay, Bai Ningbing. Cats don't blame their owners. Cats will always come back to see you again." I wanted to pat her with my paw, but my soul was suddenly swept away by a powerful current of air. I became another kind of cat. I became a stray tuxedo cat. Fortunately, this body was in relatively good health. This time, I didn't have to endure hunger as much. Unlike before, no need to eat twigs or wild grass. With just a casual swipe of my paw, I could catch a few flying bugs. And fortunately, the place I was born this time seemed even farther from Bainingbing. I walked from dawn till dusk, and then from dusk till dawn, from swarms of mosquitoes everywhere, to snowflakes drifting gently from the sky. Along the way, I asked many cats, until finally the biting wind carried a hint of Bainingbing's scent. I knew I was getting closer to her. I began to quicken my steps, but it was far too cold. The chill from the ground seeped straight through my paw pads and pierced to my very core. The bugs were growing scarce too. My stomach growled loudly with hunger. As I rummaged through a trash can for strength, a woman with tattoo-covered hands suddenly blocked my way. She held a cat treat in her hand, smiling brightly as she said, "Kitty, come here." Having learned my lesson before, I immediately became cautious, raising my tail, arching my back, ready to fight at any moment. She laughed, as if amused by my overvigilance. Still chuckling, she pulled a can of wet food from her pocket. "Don't like cat treats? How about canned food? It's delicious." The tattooed woman carefully opened the can and gently pushed it toward me. The aroma was irresistible. I tentatively licked it a few times. It was so delicious. It had been so long since I last tasted canned food. The tattooed woman watched me eat with a warm smile. I thought to myself, she doesn't seem like a bad person. Gradually, I let my guard down and lost myself in the delicious meal. Suddenly, a net was thrown over my head. In an instant, the horrifying scene of my past life's death flashed before my eyes. In my previous life, I sneaked out while Bainingbing wasn't paying attention. I wanted to see for myself who this Xiaoyuan was, the one she always talked about, and dared to compete with me for Bainingbing's affection. That night, the sky was pitch dark. Following Xiaoyuan's scent, I found my way to the entrance of an alley. In the faint distance, I heard a cat crying for help. From the voice, it sounded like a young female cat. Without hesitation, I dashed toward the sound. A pregnant calico cat was being roughly handled by two tall, burly men. "You filthy beast, all you know is to eat. Still hungry, huh? Oh, right, I forgot. You're pregnant. So that's why you're so greedy. Let's cut open its belly and see how many kittens it's carrying." The calico cat's leg was already broken, its eyes, mouth, and nose covered in blood. Yet it still shielded its belly, hissing desperately at the men. Its scent was exactly the same as the Xiaoyuan Bainingbing had mentioned. No wonder Bainingbing said she wanted to bring it back. So it was because it was pregnant. No, it couldn't die. Bainingbing had already prepared a bed for it. As one of the men brought a utility knife closer to the calico cat, rage surged through me. Without a second thought, I charged at the man. In a swift, unstoppable attack, I clawed the back of his hand. I shielded the calico cat behind me. One of the men yelped in pain, dropping the utility knife to the ground. Clutching the back of his hand, he furiously kicked me. His face contorted as he roared, "Well, look at this, another little pest daring to scratch me." The other man picked up the utility knife. Together, they moved in from both sides, cornering me and the calico cat in a narrow, dark corner. The surroundings were shrouded in shadow. I protected the calico cat as I retreated step by step, hissing at them as I backed away. Though cats are known for their speed, the cramped space limited my movements, and these men were towering and strong, leaving little room for me to maneuver. But I felt no fear. Bainingbing had always said, tabby cats are the rulers of the feline world, even though they were strong. And one managed to slash my belly with the knife. I fought back just as fiercely, leaving deep, bloody claw marks on the man's face. In that instant, the alley echoed with the screeches of cats. The calico cat joined the fight as well. But being pregnant and already injured, it was quickly slammed to the ground by the man's forceful throw. I sank my teeth into the other man's arm, Run, I urged the calico cat. Go find Bai Ningbing. I am her cat. The girl who always feeds you. The calico cat gave me a grateful glance, then turned and bolted. But it hadn't gone far when a brick struck it, knocking it to the ground. The calico cat lay there, bloodied and mangled. The man didn't stop, shouting, I told you not to run. Xiao Yuan and her unborn kittens. In the end, Xiao Yuan and her unborn kittens couldn't escape the hands of the devils. As for me, they broke both of my legs and severed my tail, just as they raised the knife, preparing to slice me open. A voice rang out, Who's torturing cats? An old man approached, holding a flashlight. Startled by his arrival, panic flashed across their faces. For a moment, they forgot about me and fled. Before leaving, one of them still stomped on me. The old man saw the collar around my neck and gasped in shock. My goodness, this poor thing has an owner. Those brutes are lawless animals. He found a plastic bag and carefully placed the lifeless body of the calico cat inside. When he turned to pick me up, I had already dragged myself away. I pulled my broken body toward home, leaving a trail of crimson blood behind me. I climbed for flights of stairs, finally making it back. But Bai Ningbing hadn't returned from work yet. Dragging my shattered limbs, I made my way down 7 more steps and collapsed in the bushes near the entrance. I waited for Bai Ningbing. I had to wait for her to come home. I needed to tell her. The cat was brave. The cat didn't bow to the bad people. But Bai Ningbing, the cat is so cold. My vision grew blurrier, and my eyelids felt too heavy to lift. I thought of Bai Ningbing. She said I was the first cat she ever raised. She said because of me, she had something to hold on to. Coming home was no longer a lonely affair, because I was always there waiting for her. But Bai Ningbing didn't know. It was her who saved me from being just another cat in the window. When it was cold, there was a warm, cozy cat bed. When I was hungry, someone would feed me. It was her who gave me a home. That day, I finally waited for Bai Ningbing. She was holding a can of cat food in her arms, step by step walking toward me. Bai Ningbing! She was smiling. I knew. She must have thought of the way I devoured canned food, like a little glutton. But that day, it was the first time I saw Bai Ningbing cry, so much more sorrowfully than ever before. She cried as she ran, tears streaming uncontrollably. My blood had stained her white down jacket, her favorite jacket. I raised my paw, wanting to do as I always did, press away her tears. That way, Bai Ningbing wouldn't cry anymore. But I didn't have the strength. I could only touch her face briefly before my paw fell back down. Bai Ningbing, don't cry. It's all the cat's fault. The cat was too naughty. The cat promises next time it will be good. The cat won't steal your immortal water again. The cat won't sneak out to play anymore. In the next life, the cat still wants to be Bai Ningbing's cat. Shortly after I passed away, Bai Ningbing cried every day, so much that she reached the brink of collapse. One day, she pulled out the folding knife that I had once hidden under the sofa. She ran the blade across her arm, letting blood spill to the ground, but she didn't feel the pain. I knew she was blaming herself for not being able to save me, just like before, when she couldn't save a stray dog. Bai Ningbing once said, when she was young, she had a mutt, and it was her only friend. But in the end, her father killed the dog to eat it, unaware of what had happened. She even ate a few pieces of the meat. From that day on, she never raised another dog again. She said, if I hadn't run into you that day, I probably would have never had another pet in my life. Thinking about this, I panicked. I couldn't just die like this. I still had to find Bai Ningbing. She was waiting for me. Just as I was considering biting through the net, I realized that the road the tattooed woman was taking me on was the same path Bai Ningbing once took me down to the pet hospital. Before I could gather my thoughts, the tattooed woman had already pushed open the hospital door. I saw that neutering villain again. Pretending to be obedient, I let Dr. He place me on the table. She said to the tattooed woman, "Madam, this is the 10th stray cat you've brought in, isn't it? Let's give it a checkup." From their conversation, I learned that this tattooed woman, like Bai Ningbing, was kind-hearted. She was a cat lover. So far, she had already adopted 17 cats. It seemed she truly was a good person. I had judged her by her appearance and misunderstood her. When they weren't paying attention, I bit Dr. He's hand. Instinctively, he let go of me. Honestly, I didn't bite hard, just enough to settle the score for my neutering. I leapt off the table and bolted toward the door. As I was leaving, I turned back to look at the tattooed woman. Meow! Thank you, but I'm not an unwanted stray. The pet hospital was very close to Bai Ningbing's neighborhood. Without stopping, I ran toward home. Seeing the tightly shut front door, I rolled on the ground with excitement. I would soon see Bai Ningbing again. I knew she wasn't home yet. Because the streetlights hadn't turned on, I perched by the window, keeping my eyes fixed on the lights outside. I wasn't sure how long I waited, but eventually I heard footsteps. Perking up my ears, I listened carefully. Yes, it was Bai Ningbing's footsteps. Immediately, I ran toward her. From a distance, I could see Bai Ningbing, but she had lost so much weight. Her entire presence felt lifeless, just like back when she had first adopted me. It seemed Bai Ningbing was sick again. Seeing her like this, I felt deeply saddened. If only I hadn't left her back then. Right now, she would probably walk through the door, pick me up, and kiss me. Then I would curl up in her arms, watching TV together. I blocked her path, shouting, "Bai Ningbing, the cat is back to find you." Bai Ningbing stared at me blankly for a while, her face forming a smile more heartbreaking than tears. In a gentle voice, she said, "Kitty, how did you end up here? Whose cat are you?" "I'm Bai Ningbing's cat, the cat of Bai Ningbing's home." She crouched down, lowering her gaze to examine me closely. "Kitty, are you a stray?" "No, I'm not a stray. I'm Duo." But Bai Ningbing didn't recognize me. "It's okay though, as long as she's willing to take me in. Then I could use this new body to return to her side." I rubbed my head against her leg with all my might, exposing my belly and rolling around to act cute. Bai Ningbing glanced out at the dark window, sighed softly, and said, "Silly kitty, being this friendly with people will only get you in trouble with bad ones." With that, she pulled out her keys and opened the door. I strutted in confidently, inhaling the familiar scent that filled the house. I was so happy. But when I saw Bai Ningbing had arranged my old clothes, toys, and photos neatly on display, tears welled up. I knew Bai Ningbing had been thinking of me all along. At that moment, the angel appeared. I excitedly asked her if I had succeeded a second time. The angel shook her head. "Cat, Bai Ningbing doesn't want to keep you. You're lying. She brought me home." The angel sighed helplessly. "Don't believe me, see for yourself." Bai Ningbing placed a cardboard box lined with a blanket in front of me and brought over a plate of cat food. "Kitty, you can sleep here tonight," she said. "Tomorrow, I'll take you to the stray cat rescue center. The woman in charge is very kind. She'd take good care of you." I don't want to go to some rescue center. I want to stay with Bai Ningbing. I noticed two unopened bags of cat food and a few cans of wet food, thinking she must have another cat. I jumped around angrily. Bai Ningbing gently stroked my head. "Kitty, I'm sorry, I already have a cat. His name is Duo. I'm waiting for him. Duo is a jealous cat. If he sees you, he'll be upset. But I am Duo. Bai Ningbing, I am Duo." She couldn't understand what I was saying. Frustrated, I covered my head with my paws, running all over the house to find something that could prove my identity. My strange behavior made Bai Ningbing laugh. No wonder they say tuxedo cats are different from other cats. They're the huskies of the cat world. I knew that. But tuxedo cats are brave too. They're just like me. Finally, on Bai Ningbing's bedside table, I found my collar from my previous life. Grabbing it in my mouth, I ran over to her and placed it on the floor in front of her. Using my paw, I pushed it toward her. Bai Ningbing looked puzzled, but when she saw the collar, her expression changed dramatically. Her voice turned sharp as she said, "Kitty, this belongs to Duo. You can't." Mid-sentence, Bai Ningbing suddenly seemed to realize something. Her nose tingled and she asked, "Are you Duo? You're Duo, aren't you?" I raised my head and meowed at her. Meow, 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 meow. Yes, Bai Ningbing, I am Duo. She scooped me up in her arms, tears streaming down her face. Bai Ningbing, you're crying again. You're such a crybaby. I used my paw to press against her falling tears. Oh, Duo, it really is you. You came back to find mommy again. Yes, I've come back to find you, mommy. Bai Ningbing bathed me, dewormed me, and put the collar back around my neck. She held me, smiling joyfully. But as she smiled, she began to cry again. Through her sobs, she said, "Duo, you must have suffered so much on your way back, didn't you?" I licked away Bai Ningbing's bitter tears, rubbing my face against hers vigorously. Cat isn't suffering at all. As long as I can see Bai Ningbing again, I'm truly happy. We spent a joyful time together. It felt as if everything had returned to the beginning again. Every day, I waited for her to come home from work, and she would rush back with treats for me. On weekends, she would make cat meals for me by hand. We'd sit together on the balcony, basking in the sun. The warm sunlight covered us both, and Bai Ningbing gradually became more spirited. She started smiling again. I wish time could stand still, so her smile would stay on her face forever. But one day, while Bai Ningbing was playing with me using a cat teaser, there came a sharp knock at the door. The visitor exuded hostility. I could sense the tension immediately, lowering my body, bending my legs, and swishing my tail from side to side, ready to fight at any moment. Bai Ningbing gently stroked my head. "Don't be scared, Duo. It's okay." With that, she took a deep breath and stood up to open the door. "Stupid girl, are you deaf? Took you long enough to open the door." The visitor was a plump, curly-haired middle-aged woman. I had seen her photo in one of Bai Ningbing's small boxes before. She was Bai Ningbing's mother. Zhang Meifan stepped in and looked around. Her gaze landed on me. She glared at me fiercely, before turning to Bai Ningbing and saying, "Living alone in a one-bedroom apartment, and even raising a cat. Looks like you're living a pretty good life. I'm spending my own money." Bai Ningbing said, pursing her lips. "What do you want?" Zhang Meifan walked over to the sofa and tried to shoo me away. "Get lost, you filthy little thing." Bai Ningbing picked me up, her expression turning cold. "It has a name. His name is Duo. He's not some filthy thing you can call whatever you want." Zhang Meifan scoffed. "I'm not here to waste time arguing about that nonsense. You haven't sent any money home for 2 years. What's this? Think you've grown wings now? Don't care about your parents anymore?" I could feel Bai Ningbing trembling. In a very soft voice, she murmured, "You were the ones who abandoned me first." Then, she raised her head to look at Zhang Meifan. "Mom, I don't have any money. If there's nothing else, you should leave." Zhang Meifan shot to her feet, angrily yelling at Bai Ningbing. "You ungrateful brat. I should have smothered you at birth when I had the chance, trying to kick me out over my dead body. Your brother is getting married soon, and we're short 50,000 yuan for the bride price. Give me the money and I'll leave. I told you I don't have any money." Bai Ningbing glanced at me. "And even if I did, I wouldn't give it to you." Bai Ningbing is not ungrateful. I was furious. hissing at Zhang Meifan relentlessly. Actually, Bai Ningbing's original name was Zhao Di. She gave herself the name Bai Ningbing. She once told me there were two big regrets in her life. The first was that she couldn't save that dog. The second was not being able to attend university. Bai Ningbing had been sent to work after graduating from middle school. Before meeting me, she lived in a tiny room that cost 500 yuan a month. The room was so small, barely big enough to fit a bed and an air conditioning unit. It was so small that the only place we could interact was on the bed. Later, about half a year after adopting me, Bai Ningbing gradually became more cheerful. She said she wanted to give me a bigger space to run and play. That's how she ended up renting this current apartment. While I was lost in thought, Zhang Meifan suddenly rushed toward Bai Ningbing. She grabbed Bai Ningbing by the ear. You have money to live in a nice place, money to raise a cat, but no money to help your brother? Today, I'm going to beat you to death and act like you were never born. As she spoke, her other hand reached to pull Bai Ningbing's hair. Instinctively, I sank my teeth into her arm. You're a bad person. You're not allowed to hurt Bai Ningbing. Zhang Meifan screamed in pain. She flailed her arm desperately, trying to shake me off. Filthy thing! Let go! Zhao Di! Tell this filthy beast to let go! Bai Ningbing, trembling, snapped out of her shock. She bit her lip and called out to me. Oh, mommy's fine. Be good and let her go. Looking at her pale, tear-streaked face, my heart ached terribly. I released Zhang Meifan's arm and ran into Bai Ningbing's embrace, rubbing against her. Bai Ningbing, don't be afraid. The cat will protect you. Together, we cried, holding onto each other tightly. But suddenly, I felt a cold sensation on my stomach. I turned around and saw Zhang Meifan holding a fruit knife. Red blood began to flow out. She stabbed me again and again with force. That's for biting me. So this was my second death. A heart-wrenching cry escaped Bai Ningbing's throat. She shoved Zhang Meifan away with all her might. Get out! Ignoring everything, she held me tightly and ran outside. She tripped and fell, scraping her face, but still clutched me protectively in her arms. Suddenly, I remembered that night. That night, Bai Ningbing was just as distraught. Duoduo, don't fall asleep. Mommy's taking you to the hospital. Duoduo, open your eyes and look at mommy. Duoduo, but I still died. My head drooped lifelessly. Bai Ningbing collapsed onto the ground, her hollow gaze fixed on my lifeless body. We had only known each other for 3 short years. I didn't give you expensive cat food, nor did I provide you with a good living environment. I wasn't a good owner at all. I don't deserve you, who went through so much to find me. If you can reincarnate again, don't come looking for me anymore. Bai Ningbing is a fool. How could it be only 3 short years? It was clearly 12 years. The last time I became a chubby black cat. The moment I opened my eyes, I was in Bai Ningbing's neighborhood. Her scent was so close, yet so far away. I didn't want to see her cry for me anymore. I didn't want her to watch me die again and again. Powerless to do anything. I hated this feeling. Bai Ningbing shouldn't be like this. I curled up in the corner of a wall, staring blankly at the unlit street lamp. Bai Ningbing, do you know something? Cats are actually very foolish creatures. Even if some humans don't like them, even if they've been hurt by people before, they still choose to trust humans. They may not express themselves as well as dogs, but they're just like dogs in this way. They remember who fed them, who petted them. Once they've chosen someone, they'll remember that person forever. Just like I remember Bai Ningbing clumsily feeding me goat milk. How you used to pinch your nose while cleaning my litter, but later started using your hands, and you didn't even mind. I remember the first time you clipped my nails. You accidentally cut into my paw and cried for so long. After that, you only dared to take me to the vet for nail trims. I remember when you caught me sneaking a sip of your soda, how you were both furious and amused. I remember you zoning out, I remember you crying your heart out. But in the end, what's fixed in my mind is you holding me and laughing loudly. So, by Ningbing, this time the cat won't come looking for you. The cat has decided to watch over you from afar. Humans usually don't like black cats. Even though there are people in this neighborhood who feed strays, they always skip me. Thankfully, I have thick fat to keep me warm for a little while longer. I perched on an air conditioner unit to stay warm. I needed the air with my paws to comfort myself into sleep. When I'm asleep, I don't feel hungry. When I'm asleep, I can dream of Bai Ningbing, the delicious treats Bai Ningbing used to buy for me. Suddenly, a cat interrupted my dream. Big bro, stop sleeping. There's good food to be had. Its name was Zihei. Zihei saw my lean and muscular build and assumed I was an excellent hunter. It insisted on making me its leader. Well, it wasn't entirely wrong. After all, I was once a tabby cat. I asked it where the food was. It pointed toward the apartment complex's garage. Before you came, there was a girl who often fed cats there. She's different from others. As long as it's a cat, anyone who shows up gets food. She's here again today. Let's go quickly. By the way, big bro, you've been around, right? Do you know a tabby cat named Duadwo? I froze. I stopped in my tracks and asked, how do you know about Duadwo? The girl mentioned it, Zihei said. Every time she comes to feed us, she brings a collar for us to smell. Bai Ningbing, you liar. Didn't you say you didn't want me to find you? But I know the truth. You're just worried I'll be cold. You know how I hate the cold. In winter, I'd always burrow into your blanket. Unless you turned on the air conditioning, otherwise I wouldn't leave the bed. Zihei gave me a suspicious look. Big bro, you know her, don't you? I see you go to the bushes near Building 5 every day. What are you doing there? The image of Bai Ningbing crying flashed through my mind. I quickly shook my head. Nothing. I'm not hungry. You go eat. Zihei hesitated, looking back at me every few steps. It stared at me with a strange expression, but soon, the temptation of food became too much for it to resist. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared from my sight. The snow had been heavy these past few days. I was unbearably cold. I didn't realize that just one nap would make me miss my chance. I returned to the bushes, fixing my gaze on the road ahead. The streetlights flickered on and off. Time and again, Bai Ningbing passed by in front of me. The snow grew heavier and heavier. I realized my body was beginning to stiffen from the cold. During this time, Zihei tried to persuade me. It said it didn't understand why I was doing this. It had been a stray cat since birth, because it had never experienced the purest happiness and warmth. It naturally couldn't understand, for cats like us strays by nature, to be adopted, to have a home, to have someone who loves us unconditionally. How incredibly lucky that is. My entire body was nearly frozen stiff. I used the last of my strength to widen my eyes, staring fixedly at the road where Bai Ningbing would return. I knew that with this death, I would forget her. So, I wanted to see her one last time. I saw her. Snowflakes landed on her hair. She looked so beautiful. I remembered the first time I saw snow with Bai Ningbing. That day, she watched me roll in the snow, watched me chase the falling snowflakes. She pressed my paw into the snow to leave plum blossom-shaped prints. Then she pressed her own hand beside it. She said, Duwadwo. It's sealed. In life after life, you can only be my cat. I turned to look at my frozen body. My soul rested on her shoulder. Through tears, I said, Bai Ningbing, human lives are so long. I hope you can forget this cat and live well. The cat will watch over you from Catstar. I returned to Catstar. The cats there saw me come back and bombarded me with questions, asking if I had succeeded. Overwhelmed, I burst into tears. Tabby bro, don't cry anymore, they said. At least you got to see your owner again. Some of us haven't even caught 1,000 mice yet. I miss my owner too. I'm off to catch more mice. Once I catch enough, maybe I'll have enough dried fish for another chance. That was Orange, the stray cat. It had only spent 3 months with its owner. During its time as a stray, it met someone who took it in, but its owner fell ill and had no choice but to give it away. The new owner treated it well, but it only recognized the first one, so it ran away to find its original owner, but was hit by a car along the way. Hearing this, the other cats shared their extra dried fish with it. I had no dried fish left, so I could only wish it luck. As I waited for the angel to come and erase my memory, I wandered around listlessly every day. Even the mice weren't afraid of me anymore. They often scurried past right under my nose. I didn't know how many days had passed when I suddenly saw Zihei. I saw it boasting to the other cats. Let me tell you, my big bro is incredible. Anyone who sees him has to take a detour. Even a tabby cat wouldn't be a match for him. Where's your big bro now? Zihei scratched its head. Ha! Just like me. He froze to death. I walked over and patted it. Then why didn't you stay with your big bro? Zihei, startled, took a few steps back. Greetings, tabby bro. Under my imposing presence, Zihei confessed that after I died, Bai Ningbing discovered my frozen body the next day. It saw Bai Ningbing bury me. Hearing this, my previously heavy heart lightened a bit. At least in the end, Bai Ningbing was the one to lay me to rest. I revealed my identity to Zihei. It was so thrilled it hugged me and spun in circles. At that moment, the angel appeared. I thought she had come to erase my memory, but to my surprise, she said I could return because Bai Ningbing buried you and even erected a grave marker for you. You are no longer considered a stray. You've succeeded. I cried with joy. Can I stay by Bai Ningbing's side again? The angel gently patted my head. Yes, little tabby. You'll have a long life now. And you can stay with your owner for a very long time. I returned to the mortal world. Just like the first time I met Bai Ningbing, I became a 2-month-old tabby kitten again. Just like before, I had the same unique black birthmark on my nose. I blocked Bai Ningbing's path, meowing at her. Bai Ningbing, it's me, the cat. This time, the cat is truly back. The cat will never leave again. She recognized me. She picked me up with both hands. Duodwo, you finally come back. Overjoyed, I leapt from her hands and led her to the bushes. A little calico cat was crouched inside. Bai Ningbing was ecstatic. Duodwo, you're amazing. You even brought Xiaoyuan back. I lifted my tail proudly. Of course, Duodwo is the ruler of the cat kingdom, a mighty tabby cat. I had returned to Bai Ningbing's side once again. Xiaoyuan also found a home, but Bai Ningbing still favored me a little more. After all, I was her legitimate firstborn cat. Bai Ningbing moved us to a new house. She said that from now on, no one would disturb our lives anymore. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, I was a year old. That year, Bai Ningbing's smiles grew more frequent. That year, Xiaoyuan inherited my bad habit of sneaking sips of soda. Sometimes I'd take a few sips too. Bai Ningbing eventually gave up and bought us a mini version of the soda bottle. It looked very similar, but I knew Bai Ningbing was trying to trick us. It didn't have buttons, and it couldn't make that bubbly sound. Soon, New Year's arrived. Bai Ningbing bought red cotton jackets for both me and Xiaoyuan. She held me on the balcony to watch fireworks. As for Xiaoyuan, it was too timid and hid under the bed. Bai Ningbing kissed me several times, so much that her saliva soaked my fur. Duodwo, Happy New Year. Meow meow. Bai Ningbing, Happy New Year to you too. To all humans, cats wish you a Happy New Year as well. Oh, right. Let me tell you a little secret. Bai Ningbing has a boyfriend now. And guess who it is? It's the neuter culprit.